Hello,
Lovely.
everybody. Welcome to this In Conversation with Kerry, prolific author, queen of crime, and myself, Annie Aldington, audiobook narrator, actor, and in the very privileged position of narrating all of Kerry's books. So I was going to kick off with my own question because I'm dying to know this, and then perhaps if you want to ask some questions, we'd be quite happy to answer. But Kerry, I wanted to ask you, your process. You write so many books with so many brilliant and twisting plot lines. What do you come up with first? Your characters, your plot lines, do they meet somewhere or?
No, I always start with a tiny piece of dialogue, and I get that dialogue, and then I write the entire book around that little piece of dialogue. Yeah, so that's what I do. I'm trying to think of an example. For example, The Price. There was a conversation between Fletch and his friend Stevie about Fletch's younger brother. And that dialogue I wrote around the whole book around that piece of dialogue because I loved it so much. And yeah, that's what I did. And I've done that every single book. A little tiny piece of dialogue, and I just work around it.
And so your sort of your plot line, your through line will come out of that conversation, which would just come out of that one line, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And your characters and everything.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, and so obviously I'll write the book, and then it will go in so many different directions, and I don't know. I think that makes it come more alive because there's not a beginning, middle, and end. It's just letting those characters dictate the way.
Yeah. So you're finding out at the same time.
Yes. For example, Jimmy Carter, who's obviously in the Carter series, he was meant to be married, have children. But as I was writing, I was like, no, something's not right about this. That's not what he's about. And he ended up being gay. So they take me by surprise along the way, really. Yeah, but I love it.
God. I don't know. I don't know if I could. I don't think I've got the mind to do something like that. I can't. Do you do storyboards and all that sort of stuff as well as you're moving along?
Yeah.
Right.
No, I don't do anything. The only thing I do is on my board. I don't know if you can see my board. The only thing I do is I put their names. Sometimes I'll put a little quote that I think sort of relates to the book, and that's it. Like the new book I've just finished, I've got the quote. I don't know if I should say it, but I'll say it. The quote is, "Throw me to the wolves and I'll return leading the pack." So that quote sort of sums up the new book that I've just finished for me. I'm not going to say, I can't say much more than that, but so that quote sort of inspired me along the way as well. Right. But I don't do a storyboard. I don't do anything like that.
Oh, really? Yeah. Really? So you remember everything? You just remember who's going where? And
I try to sort of. Sometimes they'll just go off. Yeah. I don't really remember. I've got a really bad memory, so I don't really remember. But I just let them go off and do what they want to do, and I just write it all down. Right. Yeah, that's basically how I do it. But it's funny because when I listened to Revenge, there was a scene in prison, and one of the characters, you gave him an accent, and I listened to it, and I thought, oh my God, why didn't I give him like have him come from where you'd put him? I think it was Liverpool. Was it a Liverpool accent?
Right.
You might have given him. And I was
I know. Yeah, I remember.
Think of that. I could have come from there. But so I love that. I love that you sort of improvised and gave him something that was different to all the other prisoners, really.
I just think
everyone else seemed to.
Yeah, I think it helps the listener more than anything because, like in my job, because I'm cast to type. You know, I'm a Londoner. I do like London books. I do Kerry Barnes, Martina Cole. So I'm voicing 1,000 Cockneys. And I think, I mean, in prison, you're going to get all sorts in prison anyway, aren't you? You're going to get brummies, Liverpudlians and all that. So if you can put an accent on somebody, then it just sort of helps the listener. I think it helps me because it's not tiresome as trying to find yet another Cockney voice.
Yeah. But I absolutely loved it. It was quite a big shock, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, why didn't I think of that? So I loved it. I loved what you did with that one. But that made me think, like, how do you decide what they're going to sound like? Because, like you said, there are so many characters. How do you decide who?
Yeah, I think in the writing you can tell if you can give them an accent, because you can sort of tell, like, say you're writing a character, I know that Tommy's a Londoner, apart from the fact you've said they're Londoners, but you sort of the way you've written his voice. But there's other characters that you might just be able to get away with giving them something else, if there's no backstory to them, where you've said, oh, you know, the mums grew up together in the 50s or whatever. So I know that they could have come from anywhere. That's the deciding factor, really. And sometimes you can give them a Polish accent or a Middle Eastern accent, because especially in London, when it's so diverse now, there's so many people, you know, back in the day.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you can have a little bit of a play with it as well, because you're only one instrument, you're not the whole orchestra, and voicing like 100 different characters are all Londoners can be like, oh, what can I make this one sound like? You know, are they going to be stabby? Or sometimes I think of they bit sing-songy. You know, they might sort of sing a bit when they're talking. You know, just to give them a bit of a different flavour, so that the listener will go, oh, that's that songy bloke that came up last time or whatever.
Yes,
yeah.
And they instantly recognise them, don't they? That's what I love.
Yeah. And I mean, I think one of the questions that we were posed was, what do you like about audiobooks? And I think it's because, you know, there's the question there. What is it you like? And it's because it opens up to people. Because when I was younger, I could never read a classic. I used to skip chunks of Dickens and Jane Austen because I just couldn't focus on it. But with an audiobook, you get the whole story, you get all the characters, you get it from start to finish, and you understand it more, I think. That's what I like about audiobooks.
And I think as well, it sort of brings the book to life, those characters to life.
Yeah.
Especially for me, where I've written these books, so I know the story off by heart. But then when I listen to you sort of narrating it, it's like I've never heard it before. It's all brand new again, because you've brought a different, I suppose, feel to it, a different feel to it. So it's all brand new.
Yeah. Oh, and because it's brand new to me. You've been living with it for months and months, and I've come upon it fresh. So I'm discovering things for the first time about plots and all that sort of stuff, whereas you've probably got it in your head what people sound like and where they come from and all that sort of stuff. And then someone like me comes along and either ruins it for you, or you think, oh, yeah, that works, or that doesn't work. Or, I mean, you must find times where you don't think it works.
Yeah.
You wish I'd kept it, you know, whatever. And do tell me if that ever is the case. Because, you know,
never. It's never, ever happened like that, ever. No, that's never, ever happened. It was more of a pleasant shock to hear, like I said, that accent, because once I'd listened to it, I thought, oh, I wish I'd done that. Why hadn't I had him come from, I don't know, Liverpool or wherever it was he came from? So I really did like that you'd put a different sort of twist onto what I suppose imagined and written. So I loved that. That was really good.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Would you ever consider reading them yourself?
I think no. I wouldn't be able to do it. I can do it in my head. And the strange thing is, when I so before I do send it off to the editor for the first time, I do a final read through, and some parts, not the whole book, but some parts, I actually do it in your voice, how I'd imagine you would say it, and I think that kind of helps me get an idea of what it's going to sound like.
Yeah.
So I do that quite a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's quite a trend now for authors to read their own books. I go into studios and there's quite often an author reading their own book, but I suppose it's just something you either want to do or you don't, isn't it? It's you either feel comfortable with it or you don't.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be very good at it. I wouldn't be able to get those different. I wouldn't be able to do the different voices. I don't think.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll leave that to the experts. I'll leave that to you to do. I wouldn't be able to do it. I know I wouldn't.
Yeah, because AI, artificial intelligence, is taking over some aspects of audio as well. Not so much fiction, but for some of the non-fiction stuff, as you know, and on podcasts and stuff like that, you can sort of tell that it's an AI voice, but hopefully we can keep fiction with the human voice. Because like say the way a Londoner speaks is the sort of rhythm of the way you write and the way I speak. It has to be like that. You can't have a fake voice, you know, talking with a South London, East London accent. It's just, it wouldn't work. I don't think so.
It wouldn't work. No, I agree 100%. No.
Yeah.
No. I don't think I'd be happy with that at all, because like you said, it would not work.
No,
absolutely wouldn't.
But
and I think I've asked you this before, but I'm going to ask you again. So when you ever get, does it come in like a script? I don't know how it comes to you in the, I don't know, book form or whatever. You always start from the beginning, don't you, and then go through to the end? You don't do like maybe a section here and a section there. It's from beginning to end that you
we get it on a PDF, so put it on the iPad. And I just use my finger, but some people use something called iAnnotate, where they'll use highlighter just to highlight words or who's speaking. But I just use my finger, and I use like symbols so that I know who's talking, or initials. And start at the beginning. I used to read it twice, but don't anymore. I can generally get the gist as I'm going through. Then I start marking up a character list, who's who. You know, Tommy's the hero, Jimmy's a bit softer, all of that sort of stuff. Max Hardcastle, you know, I always fall in love with them. I've always got a love interest. It was Tommy, and now it's Max Hardcastle. I would have quite liked the guy. Was it Danny? I quite liked him as well. Danny McCarthy.
Yeah.
I fall in love with all of them. I've always got to have a focus. But he's a lot of Max Hardcastle, because he's a genuinely nice bloke, isn't he? This is in the Tempest series. I like him. But so then I'll mark it all up and literally scroll through it, and you know, I can't do it all in a day, but I'll do section, you know, chapter 1, chapter 2, get right to the end. Any words I don't know, I have to look up, because time is money in the studio, so you have to have everything marked up and ready to go. If I don't understand something, I might get in touch with you or the publisher just to double check. And then, you're ready to go. And the more prep you do, the faster you are. I've got a bit of a reputation for being a very good sight reader. I'm a bit of a machine, so I can go for pages without dropping. But it's only because I mark up my script to within an inch of its life. So I'll put arrows to tell me that I've got to go this way, and I'll put a pause, or if I don't know how to pronounce a word, I'll write it phonetically above whatever the word is. And the more of that you can do in your front room, the less time you spend in studio, and then your daily rate goes up. Because you're paid by the finished hours, so your daily rate goes up, because you've been sort of, instead of taking 3 days, you've taken 2, as it were. So that's how I work. And I used to panic when I first started. I used to panic.
Well,
you know,
there's a lot of,
there is a lot of work goes into it, and you don't last long if you don't do your prep. You really do. As a voice actor, you don't last long if you don't prep that book, because you're costing the studio money now, you know, and the publisher money. The publisher doesn't want to pay you for having to stop and Google something when you're in the studio, which does happen. People have to look something up and they have to sit and Google it, you know. So, but what's that question? That's for me. How did I become a voice? Yeah, how did I become a voice artist and audiobook narrator? Started years ago, went to acting college, came out, had a mate who worked in an audiobook studio. This is back in the 90s when it was cassettes. And nobody'd really heard of them. They used to say, oh, they're for the blind, aren't they? And, you know, it wasn't big business at all. And I just dropped a cassette demo into this studio, and the guy phoned me and said, we need a London voice to do this book. The actors let me down. Can you come in and do a test read? So I went in and did a test read, and he gave me the job. He was grateful, just grateful that, that I could read. So then I did it, and he gave me another and another and another and another. Then the industry just got huge. And so, yeah, I never stopped working. And I do bits of theatre. I do bits of telly and bits of theatre and that. But audiobooks are now my bread and butter. They pay my bills, you know. Please God, you know, that they keep coming in. But, yeah, so I fell into it, really. And that wouldn't happen now. Young actors coming up, you know, they wouldn't be given a chance to learn. I learn on my feet in studio or on my bum, sitting there, going away and thinking, oh, that's not right. You can't do it like that. You'll have to do it like this, and just learn on my feet. And now people haven't got time to do that. And it's big business, like your cast, like in a film. You have to audition for the publisher and the author. I mean, I bet I had to audition for you, didn't I? You got my clip and had to listen to it and approve me.
Me?
You must, yeah.
No, I requested you, Annie.
Was I just shoved? Was I? Oh, you didn't.
No, I requested you.
I had,
my very first public, well, I can't think what it's called, marketing meeting with the publisher, and they said, "Have you got anybody in mind?" And straight away, yes, I want Annie Aldington.
Oh, I'm honoured. Yeah, I am really honoured.
You definitely didn't audition for me. Definitely.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh no! Normally we have to, because we have to sort of send over a clip in our phone or something, and then listen to us.
No, completely different. I asked for you.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that's brilliant. Oh. Well, there's a question for you there, Kerry.
You're welcome. How special is it here? Oh, I love it. I remember the very first time, I think I've said this before, but the first time I ever heard you narrate one of my books, and I actually cried, because for me it was an absolute dream come true. And to hear those characters I'd had in my head for so long, and to hear them suddenly brought to life, oh, I loved it. So for me, it's just so special.
Was that the Fletcher series?
No, that was Underdog.
Oh right, yeah. So Tom,
I had to look them because it's so it would have been Tommy. So it's funny because I actually wrote Top Dog first. I wrote that 10 years before Underdog, and I wasn't ready to say goodbye to Danny, so I brought in the Carter family, and then obviously I had to go back and then write their book. So I always have to think which book is first, but Underdog. It was definitely Underdog. That was the first book I think you narrated for me, and then every book since then, I've just loved every single character that you've done. I love it.
Thank you. I don't know how you write so many books when you work full time, and you must be fast. I mean, because you what do you release?
I'm not fast.
Is it 2 a year though?
Yeah. 2 a year. I write 2 a year. Yeah, come out 2 a year. I don't know. I always say I don't really have. I don't know. I love books, and I love the writing, and I can't imagine not doing it. So I find the time. Like I said, I'll come home from work and I'll start writing. Every weekend I'm writing. So now I've just finished that next book. So now I'll have probably 2 weeks off, and then it'll start all over again. But already I'm already doing research. I've already made a little start. So no, I love it. So it is hard. I won't lie, it's hard because obviously I do work full time, and
So I was going to say, how did you start writing though? I mean, what sort of like pushed you into writing your first book?
Because I loved books, I think. So I wrote my very, very first book. It was never published, but I think I was about 20, maybe 20, 21, 22. It was never published. I didn't do anything with it. And then I started reading Martina Cole's books. I absolutely loved them. And I'm still a big, big fan of hers. And then one day, me and my brother, we were having a discussion about, it was actually about football violence. And that is where Top Dog came from. Because originally it was a football violence book. Because at the time we had lots of football violence films on TV. So that's what it originally was. And then it changed to become Top Dog. So that's how I started in Gangland. But before that, I did a few like historical romance ones. So like during World War II and World War One. And I did love them, but I think the Gangland's the one for me.
Yeah, yeah.
And I like being able to have those characters that are reckless. And
would you think about bringing those historical ones, romance ones back? Would you consider revisiting
I would.
them?
I think I would. I think if I didn't work, that would definitely be on my list to try and get them edited and maybe rewrite them. So that's my future plan when I do give up work. So alongside obviously my Gangland, I'd start maybe trying to do a bit more of those. Yeah. Maybe have the two. I don't know. I'd have to see how it goes. But that's could be in my plans.
Because some authors use another name, don't they? If like for their historical romance, would you consider
definitely
that?
Yeah, I'd have to. Because I wouldn't be able to combine the two. Definitely wouldn't.
Yeah.
You couldn't have someone read the Gangland and then go and read that. It just wouldn't work. So definitely different name, different branding, everything.
Yeah. That's for me. How do you prepare to narrate an audiobook? What steps do you undertake? Well, I think I've covered a bit of that before, but just research, marking it up, symbols. I always say, like the preps, it's all in the prep. So I'll use symbols. Like if they're miserable, I'll use a squiggle. Or if they're sort of big, I'll do a big moon or something. And you do find that you change in a studio. Like as you're reading, and but you're sort of doing that as you're reading, or they're really thin and you're doing that. You do change. You can't move too much because you'll knock the mic, but you do find that you change a bit as you're doing it. And I get really involved I really get involved in the story. Because I think one of the questions that I saw was, do you approach it as a reader or as a sort of narrator? And that's the question. And I think, although you know what you're doing, your job, and you're narrating, but you're in the book as well. Especially if it's a really great book, you're absolutely in the book. And although you've read it once before, you're watching it unfold in front of you, as the listener is as well. So it's like being in that moment of the book. Technically you have to think about the narration. You have to, your voice, changing it, doing the men, doing the women, hopping about from one to another or whatever. But that's how I approach, and the symbols and the prep are the key for that.
And I think that comes across as well when you listen to it. You can see sort of that, like that you are in that moment when you're reading it. I definitely can hear it when I listen to it anyway.
Yeah,
I'm not surprised that you do take on those characters.
Yeah, and I think you take on the emotion as well. It can be very draining, especially if you've had a death scene or something. I won't spoil it, but there was one in the Carter Brothers one where you could wipe the floor with me. You could have wiped the floor with me, because everyone was there, the mother, and and it was, you went from one character to another, what they were witnessing and what they were feeling. Oh, it was just draining. And then, of course, I laugh a lot as well. Some of the scenes in some, particularly in the crime ones, are really funny, although they're black humour and you shouldn't be laughing. But you're sort of, I think I said this the last time we spoke about the guy who couldn't get the safe. He couldn't remember the safe combination because he was petrified, and he only had his pants on because he'd been with some woman and they sort of jumped on him and he was gibbering in his pants and he was panicking because he couldn't stop laughing. I'd have to be sent out. I have to say, go out and get some air, and I go out and get air, and then I come back and I just can't stop. And I get halfway through the sentence and I'm off. And I'm going, the editor must be going, oh, this woman, because I'm going, shut up, Aldington, just shut up. Think of something bad. Then I think of something bad, and then I start halfway through the sentence, my voice does go like that, and I start laughing again. And the producer's like, oh, God, shut up. But, like when you're at school on a Friday afternoon, you're not allowed to laugh. It's that sort of thing. And there's no air in the studio, so you get hysterical by the end of it. But yeah, I get really involved. I get really caught up in all the stories, and if I don't sort of understand something, I will go back, and try and read the chapter again if I don't understand the plot, or I don't need to do that. I don't need to worry about not understanding the plot, but I quite like to understand the plot so that I can give it more sense or meaning. But there's another question for you, Kerry.
Yeah.
Has anything ever surprised you about?
Has anything ever? No, I think the only one which we've already spoke about was the one in, I can't even remember his name. I've got such a bad memory. The one in prison. He changed he didn't change his accent. You gave him an accent. I think that's the only thing that's ever sort of surprised me, because I wasn't expecting it, but I loved it. I really liked it. So I think that was the only thing that surprised me. Yeah.
And do you listen to the whole book then? Do you listen to it back?
I do. I can't wait to listen to it. I put it on pre-order and everything. As soon as it comes through, I say I'm listening. Yes. I get very excited. I'll never read it again, actually read the book, but I do always listen to it. Yeah, because I think by the time, so once I've written it, it goes through another 3 lots of editing. So by the time it gets to that, I don't want to read it again. But like I said, when I listen to it, then it makes it feel like it's a completely different book, where it sort of comes to life more for me. I suppose because I know it inside out. By the time I listen to it and I hear those voices and everything, it's like a different book. But I listen to everyone. I have it pre-ordered and straight away I listen to it. I love it.
Oh God.
Yeah. And it's funny because my partner, he's not into books. He doesn't like reading, hates books, actually, hates them. But I persuaded him to listen to, I think it was one of Martina Cole's books that you'd narrated. And now he loves them. He absolutely loves them. And he says, oh, that woman. Yeah, he says, that woman, meaning you, that woman, oh, she's so funny. And now he loves them. He's got more books than I've got on audiobook anyway. So it just shows it's not like those people that don't like reading, they can enjoy it a different way because they can listen to it. And like I said, like hearing those voices and the way you do it, it's completely different for them as to reading it. So they can enjoy a book as well.
Yeah, I like, because there's you do it really well, but like writing men, how men talk, because like not everyone can do that, can't they? I mean, Martina does it well. You do it well. There's a few out there that write men really well, because men, when they're on their own, they talk completely differently, don't they? And capturing that, I think, is a real skill. Yeah.
No, I absolutely love writing men, and I love those younger characters. I think I love even more because they can be reckless, they can do really stupid things, and they can get away with it. Whereas the older characters, they can't get away with it anymore. So I do like writing my young ones, but yeah, I love writing men. I think with women, I find women hard to write, really hard, because I don't know. I don't know if it's because I look at myself and I think, how would I act in that situation? I don't know. I find them really difficult.
Yeah.
Whereas men, I could do them all day long. I don't know. It's strange.
Yeah, because I like doing men as well, funnily enough. I like,
Isn't that
doing.
strange?
Yeah, it's sort of my favourite characters are the men, especially when they're in the lockup off the A13, and they've got the bloke and they're going to torture him, and they've got the blowtorch out, and and it's all sort of so heightened, isn't it? But like the way that they're sort of they light the blowtorch, and I don't know, I get all like I'm in the gang. and they're really funny. As I say, they're black humour, but some of the scenes are really like you can't help but laugh just because of the way they're written.
Yeah.
I'm sure I've got like a warped mind, but yeah, I think it's a real skill being able to write. And for men to enjoy reading about the men as well from a woman author, that's a real accolade.
Yeah, it's true. No, I don't know. I just find they seem to come more natural for me to write men, whereas women, I really do have to think about what I'm writing. And then one of my friends said to me, "Just pretend it's a man," and I tried, and it's still not the same. I think I know up here it's not a man. I don't know. It's hard. I think it's hard, but yeah, men are easy. Men, I could do men all day long. They're easy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a real skill, I think.
Maybe it's because now I'm thinking about it. Yeah, maybe. But maybe it's because I can let those men be reckless, and I don't know, when it comes to women, I find it harder. I don't know. Maybe I put myself in that situation and think, well, I wouldn't act like that, or I wouldn't do that. I don't know. But yeah.
Do you base your characters on real life people, or?
Not a whole character. Sometimes I might take little bits, or I might see somebody and I thought, oh, you'd look really good in a character, or normally like little bits. So a little bit of this person, a little bit of that person will make one person.
Right.
I don't put anything of myself in. The characters are not like me. They no, in real life I don't really swear at all. Whereas obviously they're gangsters, they're gonna swear, so they do. But no, so there's not really much of me in them, I don't think. But there's little bits and pieces of people. There's one of the characters is a lot like one of my brothers. And anybody who reads the books, they all say to me, "That's your brother," and I'm like, maybe a few a few traits.
Which character?
So Danny Mackay is very is very similar to my brother. His name's Danny as well. Well, Dan, very similar to him. Bits and bobs, parts of him, but enough that people will read it and they'll come back to me and say, "Oh, that's your brother." I'm like, yeah, maybe. But he hates it. He's like, "Don't tell anyone." And now I've told everyone.
So I mean, you obviously don't like mix with villains or anything like that. So where do you get those storylines from? Those plots from? You don't know.
I don't know. I don't actually know. They just sort of pop into my head. I don't know.
So
and it's weird because they can happen any time.
Yeah, sorry, I think that
what was that, Annie? Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, so all those sort of scenarios, where you've got the Carter brothers and they're doing some sort of business and all that. That is just imagination. That you've never been a part of anything like that, or witness to anything like that. Should I think? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've never ever witnessed it, never been a part of that world. It's just all imagination. And I can be anywhere. I could be at work, I could be walking to the shops, and all of a sudden an idea will come into my head, and then that's it. I'll just do it over and over in my head. And as soon as I can, I write it down, and that's just how I do it.
Right. So you don't know any villains in real life then?
But yeah, I've never been ever in that. No, I don't. But it's funny because a lot of people come to me and they'll say, "Oh, do you know what I did years ago, or I did this years ago?" But they're not villains. I don't think they're villains. But people do, when they know you write crime, they tend to come and tell you all their secrets and things they probably should never tell me.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is quite strange, really. So I think they think I'm one of them. I don't know.
Well, yeah, because I remember, like, I got a few letters from like guys in prison when I used to record the Martina Coles when I record, and I used to think that they thought I knew villains because of the nature of the job, you know. And I used to think, oh, you know, I might have known a bloke who sold shirts off the back of a lorry or something, but you know, I never knew any murderers or anything like that.
No, exactly.
I don't know where you were brought up in Dagenham, weren't you? Is it Dagenham you were brought up? Yeah, well, I was brought
up. Yeah, Barking and Dagenham.
Yeah, well, I was sort of born on a council estate in Catford, and you always had like your families, you know, and you always had your villains, and there was always the pub where all the sort of double dealings were done and that. But so I suppose we lived amongst them, didn't we? But my family were always quite, you know, proper. And, but I suppose just living in an environment like that, you're going to have a lot more sense of it, aren't you, than if we were born in Kensington?
Yeah, I think that's right. Absolutely, I think that's right. You know, you see it every day, even though you're not a part of it. I suppose in a way you are a part of it because, like you said, that's your environment. That's what you've grown up in. That's where you live. I'm still in Barking. I live on the road where the Carters live. So that is, you know, my environment. That's what I wrote about. So yeah. So what I can see is what I wrote, really, with a bit of imagination thrown in.
Yeah. Well, they say write about what you know, don't they? I mean, and I think you can tell that you've known those streets and that you've known, you know, you've not had, you know, contact with these people, but we've all seen them. We all knew who the villain family was on my estate. The dad was on the Isle of Wight, you know, in prison. So you sort of knew who the families were. But yeah, you know, you never came across them yourself. So can you both tell us about an audiobook you've listened to that you would recommend? I don't actually listen to audiobooks. Isn't that terrible? I think it's because I work in it so much and I'm constantly recording that I don't actually listen to them. I listen to podcasts. I listen to a lot of podcasts, probably 2 or 3 a day, all crime or history. Or investigative sort of policing. I love anything. I'd love to have been a policewoman, you know, detective. Loved it. You know, if I hadn't been what I am, I think I'd have gone into something like that. So, yeah, podcasts for me. That's what I listen to. So I can't recommend one, I'm afraid.
I think for me, I would say any of Martina Cole's books because I think they are all fabulous. I'm trying to think of my favourite one.
I liked her early stuff.
I really liked the family. Yeah, the early stuff was brilliant. But I did like The Family. Was it called The Family?
Oh, yeah, that was good.
I think it's more of a later book, but I did really like that one. I like that one.
The Lady Killer was a good one.
The Lady Killer was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But you're right, all the early stuff, all of it, I love all of it. They're all very good.
Yeah.
So if I was going to recommend one, definitely one of hers.
I should listen to more, really. I mean, I should listen to the classics or something like that because I never got through them at school, only the ones that we really had to get through, you know, for your exams. But I was never very good at the classics. So really, I should take some time and listen to them. I've seen all the BBC adaptations, but I've never actually read the book. So, you know, are you a member of Audible?
Yeah, I think that's yes, yeah. Yeah, so I always get my books from there. But I think it's the same, like you said, you don't listen to them. It's the same for me. I don't get much time to read books anymore because one, I don't want sort of their voice to come over into my voice, and I don't want to start getting mixed with what, you know, the way they write. And I just don't get time. Obviously, I work full time, then I'm writing pretty much full time. So I might get 10 minutes a day if I'm lucky. But yeah, so I don't really read books anymore. But when I'm going to work or on my way home, I do listen to them on Audible.
Yeah.
So I suppose in a way I'm still reading them, aren't I? Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean that's the good thing about audiobooks is that they reach so many people. I mean, is it the Listening Books company that they're not like they are like the RNIB, but they're for anybody who can't physically pick up a book for whatever reason. So there's lots of opportunities for people to listen to stuff now, isn't there?
Yeah.
There really is. I mean, I tend to read. If I'm going to, you know, I won't listen, I'll read, you know, and I'll read non-fiction. I don't really like fiction anymore, I think, because I prep so much of it. So I tend to read history or autobiographies or something like that, Hollywood stars. Or
I've just really started getting into autobiographies as well. I used to read them years ago, but I think the same where I'm trying to get away from fiction because I don't want, like I said, that voice to come into my voice. So I have been reading some autobiographies, which has been quite nice.
But I find with if I read fiction, I start preparing it. You know, I start like mentally preparing.
Imagine,
and it sort of puts me off a bit, even though it wouldn't be the sort of book they'd ask me to read. I still start thinking, oh, better look that word up and better do this and I think, oh no.
Yeah.
So I tend to read.
See, I sometimes do that when if I'm watching a film, I'll sometimes think, oh, I wouldn't have done it that way. I would have made them, you know, go in this direction, or it's the same sort of thing, I suppose.
Yeah, a bit of a busman's holiday, I suppose, in a way. You know, it's like for me it is anyway. Podcasts are sort of short and sweet, and you can have them on for as long as you want or as little as you want. And you, as I say, I tend to listen to a lot of crime, so you can always switch it off halfway and catch up with it again. But I haven't. No, don't really listen to
I've got to admit, I do listen to a lot of crime. I'm the same though. I listen to a lot of crime and I watch a lot of crime. So maybe that's as well where I get some ideas from. But I know what you mean. You can switch it off, and you don't have to be really into the plot. You can just listen, switch it off, come back to it, which is good. It's another way for people to listen to stories, I suppose, but real stories rather than fictional stories.
And as I say, history or anything like that, and anything new about Anne Boleyn, or, you know, who I'm obsessed with. Nothing a lot of people are, but anything that's new.
I love Anne Boleyn. Absolutely obsessed.
Yeah. There's a new book out by Tracy Borman about Elizabeth and Anne, you know, the relationship between them and how much Elizabeth got from her mother, even though she was very young when she died. So anything like that, I'm on Amazon and I'm buying it. But I just love all of that.
Yeah, I wonder why.
I don't know. Yeah. I think it's from a kid. I used to read all the Jean Plains when I was a kid. So that again. Yeah, all of those, like the Catherine.
I think it's because she was that strong woman who had that tragic ending. And like I said, there are so many books on her, different, maybe from different takes of what she would have been like. So it's fascinating.
Yeah. And of course, yeah, tragic end.
But I've never listened to one, so maybe I need to do that next.
Perhaps I would listen to something like that, but yeah, definitely not fiction. I think it would. That's our time up, isn't it? I think. Is it?
I think so. Is it?
Yes, it is. Right. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your company.
Thank you.
And yeah, pleasure
Thank
to
you
talk
very
as
much.
always. And keep writing.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
See ya. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye. Bye.